If you think that recognition is just another corporate buzzword, give me a few minutes of your time, because in this video, I'm going to give you a more real talk alternative to define it and a 3-step exercise that will have ripple effects that long after this video ends. Now, the term recognition, you may hear that at work, or you may be in a workplace that you don't hear anything like it. But sometimes things like that do sound like corporate buzzwords. And so a way to think about the idea of recognition is genuine appreciation. Now, when I say that, you may think to yourself, it's been a long time since I felt that way at work, and you're not alone. Rarely do people get the thanks that even other people may think about them, or the appreciation, but often people don't vocalize this. And especially if you're a manager, bringing that to your team can make all the difference. Because if you're thinking about things like results, well, things like results, business performance, engagement, retention, I know some of those corporate buzzwords, but those things that you may be responsible for, recognition is a huge part of them. And so thinking about that as genuine appreciation, for calling out the things that you see or hear from others and telling that to the person. Now, a 3-step exercise that can be really helpful to bring this to life. And I really encourage you to actually do this. The first step is recognition for yourself. And if you think, oh, this feels super corny, well, just think to yourself, okay, if I'm going to ask you, or I am asking you now, what makes you really good at your job? What's your reaction? Sometimes people may make like a face, or you may pause, or you may start saying things that are more about other people, like I care about other people, I listen to other people, and that's important. But really thinking about for yourself the things that you do and say that really make you uniquely good. It's not always easy, but I encourage you to pause and think about those and actually write those down, because it is important to have that genuine appreciation for yourself. And like a lot of things, it can be easier to do something like that in private, even if it's hard to think of specific things, but easier than taking the next step. Because step 2 is, okay, if I'm going to ask you, think about somebody that you've known in your career that's really great at their job. Who's the person you think of? It may be someone you worked with long ago, but just really great. You can depend on them. Now that person, I encourage you to reach out to that person. You may know them and work with them already. It may have been a long time. So whether that's you have their number or email or LinkedIn or anything like that, but reaching out to that person to tell them what specifically they did that made an impact. And that's important because recognition overall and genuine appreciation, the genuine part matters so that people know what they actually did well. That's why it's important to think of it for yourself, but then for other people. Because telling someone specifically, that's what makes all the difference and shows it is really genuine. Now, if you were to reach out to someone and say, give them that genuine feedback, say, I loved working with you because of X, Y, and Z. But you think to yourself, okay, if I send that to someone, they would think I'm in imminent danger, and that's my cry for help. Okay, I get it, because that can feel awkward or at best and lots of other words. But instead, framing it and giving them that context. You can say, I was watching a video. You can add manager method, but you don't have to. But I was watching a video about recognition and thinking about someone that really stood out that I've known in my career, and you're the person I thought of. Now, when you do that, you may think, okay, but am I just telling them I'm only doing that because somebody in a video told me to? No, thinking about the person on the other side, because when they get that message, they're not thinking about it that way, like that's the only reason you send it. They're thinking that all the people that you've come across in your career, they're the person that you thought of. And that just makes a world of difference. And so it can feel awkward and uncomfortable to reach out like that. But I really encourage you to, because that can make a difference for the minutes and days and years long after. That's a message people often don't forget. And so your discomfort may last for a few seconds or right after you hit send, but just knowing it can make absolutely all the difference. Now, the third step is, okay, we've thought about for yourself and then thinking about somebody that's like the most impactful person in your career. But think about someone you're just working with now. And think about something that they did that was really helpful or stood out. Maybe it's something they always do, but something that if I'm going to ask you like the biggest thing you remember in your career, like step 2, this wouldn't be that. It's just something nice. But you didn't take the time to call them out for it. That may be someone that you think, when they send a message, it just is so caring. Or if you made a mistake, they ask questions, or they told you privately rather than throw you under the bus in a big meeting where they may get, some credit for doing that. But just anything like that you've seen and experienced, and reaching out and telling that person at work. If you're a manager, telling somebody on your team, like, hey, you did this, you did X, and this is why, the reason that it made a difference. Because it doesn't always have to be the huge things, and it doesn't have to wait for something like a year-end performance review. But just building these habits of thinking for yourself about what you see and appreciate in yourself, thinking about those people that stand out maybe years and years later, and telling them that and having that ripple effect for them, and then just thinking about the habit of the people that you work with. You don't have to have a checklist of every day I'm going to send a message to someone, because nobody needs another to do. But making it a habit of having those thank yous, those I appreciate that, hey, this stood out, and telling people what you see in them or what they did, that can make the ripple effect that helps drive everything at work, from those business results to things like connection, and have massive impacts, not just on people's work and career, but their life outside of it. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, I really struggled with things thinking about for myself. Well, every week I send an email, the Manager Method Minute. This is actually the 200th issue that I'll be sending out today. And I send it with a blog where I embed this video. But if helpful, in that email, I'm going to include a tip of ways to get that feedback about yourself from others if it feels like it would be incredibly awkward to do. So I'll have in the description ways you can sign up for that. But just knowing recognition is such a huge part of things like work, but also people's lives. So take those steps and let me know how those go.